Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Sunday, September the 20th, 2020. On this episode of the Politicrat, vote for a landslide, not a death slide. Joe Biden must win this election with a landslide victory. We have a death slide in this country, and it is continuing. And 4 more years of Donald Trump will make sure that we have millions of people who are dead in this country. As of right now, over 200,000 people have died in the United States from coronavirus. It is all on Donald Trump's watch. And I have talked many times about Donald Trump being a murderer, because that is precisely what he is. No, you won't hear that on the corporate news media, and you'll hear it in very few places. With all the cavalcade of books that have come out over the last few weeks about Donald Trump and about his administration and about his sociopathic ways and psychopathic ways, no one is talking about him being a killer or a destroyer or someone who wants to destroy the country. But you will hear it here, and you may hear it in other places, but you won't hear it in the corporate news media. On this episode of The Politicrat, more about the imperative for a Joe Biden landslide, and I'm going to talk about 200,000 people. Next. $200,000 people. Over 200,000 people here in the United States have passed away, have died from coronavirus. 200,000 people in just about 7 months. 7 months. If you really want to give Donald Trump 4 additional years in the White House, then I really think that you must be part of some kind of death cult. Because someone who has rallies and packs thousands of people into small spaces, whether indoors or outdoors, and the vast majority of them do not wear masks, and he has disclaimers saying you cannot sue him if you get the coronavirus or if you die. Your estate cannot sue him. Someone who's doing that, someone who knows, as you know by now, that this virus is deadly and dangerous, is engineering and running a death cult. Someone who does not condemn the violence of someone who in Kenosha, Wisconsin, shot 2 people dead and shot someone's arm off with an AR-15 and then walked back across state lines because the police let him. That's someone who refuses to condemn that kind of violence. Is someone who is president of a death cult. This is Jim Jones in 2020. This is the Nazis in 1933 and beyond. This is a death cult. This is a death slide. Donald Trump has told you and has told Bob Woodward 2 different things. He told you that this would go away. This virus would disappear. This virus was not really serious. Unfortunately, you're going to be hearing his voice quite a bit here in this episode. My sincere apologies. And I would not blame you at all if you decided to turn off this particular episode and abandon it. But there are other reasons, believe me. There are reasons not to do that. And I think if you listen on, you will find that that is true. But this is what he told us, what he told you, what he told me all throughout this year. This is what he told us 31 different times. He downplayed the seriousness of this virus. And I'm going to play this because I don't want you to forget this.
Are there words about a pandemic at this point?
No, we're not at all, and we have it totally under control.
We think we have it very well under control. We pretty much shut it down.
A lot of people think that goes away in April with the heat. We're in very good shape. I think it's going to work out fine. Very well under control in our country. I think that's a problem that's going to go away. Because of all we've done, the risk to the American people remains very low. I mean, view this the same as the flu.
It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
We are working on cures, and we're getting some very good results. We only have 15 people, and they're getting better. Now the Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus. And this is their new hoax. If you're healthy, probably go through a process and you'll be fine.
You take a solid flu vaccine, you don't think that would have an impact or much of an impact on corona?
No. Some of them go to work, but they get better. It'll go away. We're doing very well, and we've done a fantastic job.
It will go away. Just stay calm. We have seen dramatically fewer cases of the virus in the United States than are now present in Europe.
It's going to go away. 1.4 million tests on board next week, and 5 million within a month. I doubt we'll need anywhere near that. It's something that we have tremendous control of, and I think we're going to win faster than people think, I hope. Parts of our country are very lightly affected.
You're going to lose a number of people to the flu, but you're going to lose more people by putting a country into a massive recession or depression.
They have to go back to work. I think it's going to happen pretty quickly.
2.2 million deaths. If we could hold that down, as we're saying, to 100,000, it's a horrible number. We all together have done a very good job.
It will go away. You know it is going away. We think the death will be at a very low number. It's going to go away, hopefully at the end of the month, and if not, it hopefully will be soon after that.
31 times Donald Trump downplayed this virus that was killing people all over the world. Downplaying it this year, 2020. This is Donald Trump's America. And he is killing people with his lies, with downplaying. Oh, it's not that serious. I don't mask. Oh, who needs to wear one of those? Here's 34 times of him saying that this virus would go away. Again,
To do, a lot of people think that goes away in April with the heat. I think that's a problem that's going to go away. But when you have 15 people, and the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero.
It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
You have to be calm. It'll go away.
It will go away. Just stay calm.
It's going to go away. It's going to go away. It will go away. You know it is going away. It's going to go away, hopefully at the end of the month, and if not, it hopefully will be soon after that.
I didn't say it, I said it's going away, and it is going away.
You were saying things like, I think it's a problem that's going to go away within a couple of days.
It will go away.
It's going to go away. This is going to go away.
It's going to go. It's going to leave. It's going to be gone. I feel about vaccines like I feel about tests. This is going to go away without a vaccine. It'll go away at some point. It'll go away. At some point this stuff goes away, and it's going away. Our numbers are much lower now. I always say, even without it, it goes away. It's dying out. It's fading away. It's going to fade away.
When it dies out, and it is dying out, the numbers are starting to get very good. I think that at some point that's going to sort of just disappear, I hope. I will be right eventually. I said it's going to disappear. I'll say it again.
But
it's going to disappear.
Does that discredit
and I'll
you?
be right.
Well, the virus will disappear. It will disappear. I say it's going to disappear. And they say, oh, that's terrible. He said, well, it's true. It's going to disappear. My view is the schools should open. This thing's going away. It will go away like things go away. No question in my mind, it will go away. It's going to disappear. As I say, it'll be going away. They scream, how can you say that? I said, because it's going to be going away. It's going away. And the China plague will fade. It's going to be gone, and it's going to be gone soon. And the pandemic goes away. You know, we use the word herd, right? Once you get to a certain number, it's going to go away. It is going away, and it's probably going to go away now a lot faster because of the vaccine. It would go away without the vaccine, George.
So those are the 34 times from January of this year through September of this year that Donald Trump was telling you that this virus would go away. And while he was telling you that, he was telling Bob Woodward that this virus was deadly, that this virus was very serious, that if the wrong person got this virus, they would be dead. It's a killer. This is all on audio tape. You can hear his voice. I'm not going to play that tape, although I'll be playing some other sound that you have not really heard very much in the media. Although CNN did put one of these pieces of sound that I'm going to play in a few moments on this. But that is what was going on in this country. And now we have over 200,000 people dead. And we have this from Donald Trump. Remember this?
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
That is the voice of a murderer. Donald Trump does not take responsibility at all. He is not a leader. And he admits that.
Was there a moment in all of this last 2 months where you said to yourself, you know, you're waking up or you're, you know, whatever you're doing and you say, this is the leadership test of a lifetime?
No.
No.
I think it might be, but I don't think that. All I want to do is get it solved. There are many people that said that to me. They said, you're now a wartime president.
Who said that first to you?
Oh, many people have said
well,
that to me.
I don't want to even think about it. I'd like to make it concrete.
No, I don't like to sit back and think about that kind of thing.
Why?
Because I don't have that much time to think about it, Bob. I'm busy as hell.
It's like when he was asked about what his favorite Bible passage is. You know, there's so many he can't even name one.
I keep telling you, Donald Trump is not a leader. Donald Trump is a destroyer. I have told you this here. I have told you this on Twitter at the Popcorn REEL. I have said this over and over and over. Donald Trump is a destroyer. He destroys his own businesses. He destroys the casinos that he ran. He destroyed his own businesses. He destroyed Trump University, which was a complete fraud. It was a scam. He's destroying the Postal Service. He's destroying the confidence in voting amongst some people, although I'll talk about voting in a short bit, because people are not taking this con. They're not buying it. People have had enough. I'll get to that in a few moments. There is lots of optimism, despite the tone of these podcasts, despite the tone of these episodes, some of them, many of them, for some of you. There is reason for optimism, but we have to do the work. But Donald Trump is not a leader. And I keep saying this here. Stop talking about him being incompetent. This is not an issue of incompetence. This is a calculated and deliberate thing. Please, please disavow yourself of the notion that, oh, there's no way that people could do this to their own country. I have talked about this before. There is a certain level of naivete and romanticism. We don't want to think that the government that we have does nasty, evil things. But we've seen it. Look around you. Agent Orange, Tuskegee experiments. sending people to die in wars that never should have been waged. Iraq, Vietnam. I mean, we can go on and on and on. On and on and on. What we do to other countries in the name of the government, what we've done in other countries to disrupt their elections and their democratic processes. And now this guy is the destroyer. He is the quote unquote logical next link in a chain that has gone on for centuries, and a chain that has really ramped up over the last 40 years from Reagan to this point. You can go back to April and search my podcast. They're all there on Apple and any other podcast platform that you like to go to. Stitcher, Google, Spotify, Anchor. There's many places where you can go and go back to April of 2020. And I believe it was in that month that I did a whole episode on Reagan and the infrastructure that he destroyed and he began to destroy in this country, the United States of America. And it's from there, and just before then, but from there in earnest in 1980-81, when he took the oath of office, Reagan, and also took some bullets, by the way. People forget that there was an assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan in 1981. How quickly we forget. We are not students, well, some of us are students of history, but we in general are not. Because our lives are running a mile a minute. We've got so many important things going on in our lives that we need to deal with, attend to. There's challenges that come up for us, and we've got to face. So we don't have time. I mean, we don't have time to necessarily be looking at all these other things. Because our news is what's happening right in front of our eyes, what's happening in our families, what's happening in our own lives, what's happening in our relationships, what's happening in whatever it might be, your children, I mean, these things are coming at you. So I can understand to a degree. I can understand. It's completely understandable, right? That you're not going to remember 1980 or 81 or 5 minutes ago or even yesterday, as David Bowie sings in Young American. Or Young Americans, I forget. I think it's Young Americans. The song Young Americans. You can listen to that song. And one of the things David Bowie says in that song is, do you remember your President Nixon? Do you remember the bills you have to pay or even yesterday? Great song, that. It's not the one that gets played often. It's not necessarily one that even people remember that much from David Bowie, but that's a whole nother conversation. David Bowie makes a lot of sense, made a lot of sense. He's no longer here, unfortunately. By the way, David Bowie was somebody who really took MTV to task back in the day. Jesse Jackson did too, and a number of other people did. But David Bowie was one of the white artists, one of the few that I remember, who really took MTV to task when they refused to play black music, black people's videos, black groups, black R&B, R&B, and they would never play that. They wouldn't even put Michael Jackson on MTV. Again, another wholly different conversation. But these are just reference points from the 1980s that I'm getting to, because that's where all this stuff started, and now you have a destroyer now. You had a destroyer in Reagan who did it with a nice smile on his face, and the voice that said, I am Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. That was the nice, cool, well, some people thought, the Gipper, let's win one for the Gipper. Bedtime for Bonzo, the movie, the quote-unquote B movie that Reagan did. This, I'm the great communicator. That's what he was called. Although he himself said that it wasn't that he was a great communicator. He just communicated about great things, like destroying the country. Well, he didn't say that part. I did. The part about like destroying the country, because those are my words. But that's exactly what Reagan did. And he set that in motion, and it's gone, and the Republicans have pushed that along and pushed it along. You had Bill Clinton deregulating the media in this country and destroying a lot of black people's lives with these welfare bills and these welfare to work things that he did that just destroyed black families. He aided that too. Let's not forget that, folks. Because this is we have to look at the whole picture, and we have to be real about where we are. And now we have this guy in the White House destroying the country, destroying the apparatus, or as the racist Steve Bannon said, the Steve racist Bannon who was arrested just last month on fraud charges. He said this: Donald Trump's goal, and what the goal of Bannon and company is to destroy the administrative state in the United States, to actually break the infrastructure and crumble it. And that is exactly what is happening. You see, people are not believing the CDC because Donald Trump keeps trashing it. You see Bill Barr saying that his prosecutors, who he is in charge of, are a bunch of babies, and Montefusco or Montefiore School, they're kids, and they're this and they're that, and that he wants to see if he can charge the mayor of Seattle and prosecute her. Really? What? This is dictatorship. That is Nazi Germany dictatorship bullshit. And I'm sorry to curse because I normally don't curse on this podcast. I usually do on Twitter though. But I'm sorry about that because I really don't like to curse on this podcast. And there are one or two instances where I have in the past. But people, this is the orientation, right? This is what happens. And what we've seen over these last 4 years is a breaking up of the administrative state. It's happening right before you, like a slow motion train wreck. It would be like if you were driving on the freeway somewhere in the United States and you saw a car wreck and you drive slowly past it and you're looking and you see it all unfolding in front of you, but it's like a state of shock and a state of suspended animation. That is what's happening now. And you've got this guy trying to destroy the voting process. Oh, it's fake, it's rigged. No, it's not. It's not fake and it's not rigged. The people who are shouting that it is are the people who are trying to rig it. And the Republicans have been doing this forever. So that's really what I want to get at, right? That is what's going on here. And I also want to get to 200,000 people. If you want to have an idea, for those of you who are numb and those of you who are not, here's what 200,000 people dead. Here's what that sounds like.
200,000 Americans dead from COVID-19. Each a life, each a tragedy. But how do you even begin to wrap your head around a number like that? It's an enormous cost that we can only try to put into perspective. So let's do that. That many people can fill the largest football stadium in America, and then almost fill it again. And fill Madison Square Garden in New York City 10 times over. It might be a shock to hear that more Americans have died of COVID-19 than Americans perished in World War I and Vietnam combined. Now let's compare 200,000 deaths to other pandemics. The deadliest pandemic in U.S. history was in 1918. About 675,000 Americans died from the Spanish flu in a little over a year. Just under 200,000 Americans during October of 1918 alone. Most recently, at the height of the AIDS pandemic in the early 1990s, roughly 43,000 people died each year. This year, COVID is the third biggest killer in the United States, behind heart disease and cancer. The next closest is accidents, which includes car accidents, construction accidents, and more. Flu deaths are way below that number. The numbers can fluctuate quite a bit, but since 2010, on average, about 37,000 Americans died of the flu each year. So COVID-19 has killed more than 5 times as many. It may be a daunting number when we think of a massive crowd, but it's important to remember each death is an individual. In fact, across the country, it's 1 in 1,651 Americans. That number changes depending on where you live. In Texas, 1 in every 1,987 people has died. But some cities have been hit particularly hard. In Los Angeles, 1 in 1,593 have died. And the Big Apple has been hit extremely hard. 1 in every 351 New Yorkers has died of COVID. Do you know 351 people? And how far past this grim milestone might we go? Another wave will depend on how the school year progresses, how states continue to open up, and how the winter months will impact spread. Of course, we're all still waiting for that effective vaccine. In the meantime, please do what you can to slow the spread and stay healthy.
There's no more to say after you hear that from NBC News Now, which is exactly the source of that video, which you heard the audio from, of course. But I want to just add something. Speaking of this there's no leadership. It's not leadership. This is deliberate and willful, and I've told you, I think this guy is a murderer. He is a sociopath and a psychopath. He cares about nobody except himself and his rich billionaire buddies that he has tax cuts for. That's who he cares about. And this is what he said to Bob Woodward. Now, I don't have the audio for this, but I'm reading the quote directly. And it was played, I can tell you, on Anderson Cooper's show last week. It might have been Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. That would have been either Tuesday, September the 15th or Wednesday, September the 16th, 2020. You can look that up somewhere. I tried to look it up, couldn't really find it. CNN has a YouTube website, has a YouTube presence. I would look there, but I don't remember seeing it there either. But I'm sure it's somewhere. But I'm going to read it to you, and actually I'm going to, if you follow me on Twitter or just take a look at my Twitter page at the Popcorn REEL, I'm going to tweet this as well so that you can see it. And you can see that it's from CNN, but this is one of the things that Donald Trump said, and I'm going to read it out right now, to Bob Woodward on July the 21st, 2020. That is almost exactly 2 months ago. In fact, it will be 2 months ago tomorrow, Monday, September 21st. 2 months ago, almost 2 months ago. This is what Donald Trump said on July the 21st, 2020, this year. Quote, "You don't understand. You don't understand me. You don't understand me. But that's okay. You'll understand me after the election. But you don't understand me now." Now, when Donald Trump tells Bob Woodward almost 2 months ago that you don't understand me, you'll understand me after the election. Now, what do you think he means? That sounds like a dictator, quite frankly. That sounds like a guy that wants to be Hitler. That's what "you'll understand me after the election" is. That means that he's going to do more damage. If you think that Donald Trump would not do more damage if he won a second term, think again. If you think that Donald Trump would leave after a second term, think again. He won't. He won't. And Joe Biden winning this election must be a landslide victory, because I think only then will he decide, okay, I'm not going to bother. But if this thing is close, you're going to get what you're going to get. And I put this delicately, but I put it bluntly at the same time. You will see unrest on these streets, and maybe not in your neighborhood or in your town, but you will see unrest in this country. You're already seeing unrest. You're already seeing these things that are being produced. You saw what Donald Trump did on June the 1st of this year when he sent military and he sent these DC police in, these military police and these people in to fire tear gas, and they fired tear gas on peaceful people. You've got an attorney general who is playing up Russia and playing down Russia and playing up China. Oh, China's a serious threat, when it's really Russia that's actively doing all these things to try to curtail this election. You've got Bill Barr saying, oh, apart from slavery, staying indoors like this is the worst restraint. Oh, please. It's so insulting. And he knows that he's doing this, and he's absolutely lying. Oh, let's charge protesters who are peaceful with sedition. Really? I mean, this is what destroying institutions is. That is what this is. And I'm going to talk about this a bit more later on. I think what I want to get to now is please wear a mask, okay? Please wear a mask. Just do it. Like the commercial says. Just do it. Wear a mask. I mean, look, you're probably on edge. I mean, I think we all are. I mean, it's difficult to be cooped up. Yeah, of course. But you have to be able to also balance that a little bit by taking a little walk. And I'll get to some of that in a few moments as well. I mean, look, you're probably very concerned right now. And look, I think any person who thinks and feels and has these kinds of feelings and levels of anxiety, I mean, it's understood. Anyone who has these feelings, has these levels of anxiety. Because we don't know where this country's headed. We don't know for a fact that Joe Biden is going to win this election. And we don't know for a fact that he's going to win big, or if he's going to lose big, or if he's going to lose narrowly, or if he's going to win narrowly. We have no idea until all the voting is complete and all the counting of the votes is done. So that means for the next, 7 weeks? Because we are just over 6 weeks from this, from election day. And remember, that's what I say, over 6 weeks till election day. But really, and more importantly, 44 voting days remain until election day. Because election day is happening over these next, and has been happening for 2 weeks now. Election day has been going on for weeks, and it will continue to go on for weeks more. So, I mean, the notion that the election is on November 3rd, yeah, that's true, but there's early voting, and early voting is part of the election. So, this is not just voting on one day. This is people who have voted early. And then the rest of the people who haven't voted may vote in October early, or people who are going to go to the polls on the day of, or go on the day of, which is the 3rd of November. But mental health is critical. I mean, this is not being talked about a lot and enough, and I'm going to talk about it a whole lot more these next few days and weeks as we get closer. In fact, over the next few months, you're going to be hearing more on this podcast about mental health and about the things we need to do, about the things that are going on, about the things that you may be going through. And I aim to have some people on who are in the field who will be talking about this, because this is really important. And, these moments that we're going through are challenging. This generation and this era in history is a very challenging one. And of course, we've had many, many challenging eras before, and some very much more challenging than this. We have, it's a fact. But most of us weren't around in 1933. Most of us weren't around in 1918. Most of us, all of us were not around in 1619 or in 1492. or in 1863, or in 1865. We've had challenging moments in this country before, and some of us were here in 1968. We've had challenging moments before. 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. 1963, the assassination of JFK. And of course, 1968, everything that happened in that year. The assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, the Chicago Convention, the Democratic National Convention in 1968, and what had happened after that. And what had happened in Kent State, what happened with Orangeburg, South Carolina, the massacre there. I mean, what happened in 1921 in Tulsa, what happened in 1923 in Rosewood, Florida. We've had moments that have been very challenging in this country. We've had world wars. We've had September 11th, 2001. We've had an Iraq invasion that was illegal and war criminal. I mean, we've had so many different things. And here's another one now. And this whole year of 2020, I mean, you could just rename the year evil. Do you remember where you were in year evil? Do you remember where you were in year evil? I mean, would you have to play the song Evil by Stevie Wonder or the song Evil by Earth, Wind and Fire as your anthem for 2020, the year evil? I mean, would it come down to that? Would that be the summarizing theme? Or would it be everything else? All the sound bites, the noise, the passing away of people like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court Justice here in the U.S., or Chadwick Boseman, or John Lewis, or C.T. Vivian, or Joseph Lowry, or so many other people. John Prine, Kenny Rogers, so many other people. There's so many other people that I've even left off, not because I want to, but there's so many people. So many people. But it is at the moment that evil seems to be winning in every way. With everything we've seen, 200,000 people dead from coronavirus. And someone in the White House who takes no responsibility for it. And someone in the White House who encourages white racists to be violent. And they do so at his death wish command, at his death cult command. They gleefully spit at you, and they don't wear masks, and they do all of these things at rallies, not wearing a mask, when they know that that could save their lives and yours. If you're listening to this right now, wherever you may be in the world, wherever in the world you may be, and you know that coronavirus is, you know this is deadly. This is very real. You know, the people on TV, you know, I really wish that the corporate news media would stop airing these fools who say that this is a hoax. That is a real insult to your intelligence and to the families of the millions of people who have this virus and the nearly 1 million people globally who have died from this virus. 1/5 of them here in the United States. 20% of them are here. 20% of the people who have died are from here in the United States. They've died here. Please stop airing to the news media, to the corporate news media specifically. Stop airing these fools who get on the television. Stop sticking microphones in their faces and cameras in their faces. These people are part of a death cult. If you want the Deathslide, then you continue to vote for Donald Trump and the Republicans. It's that simple. This is the campaign slogan that Donald Trump should put on his campaign. And Joe Biden should frame this as life or death. Life with Joe or death with Donald. I mean, that's really what this is about. It's not about the Supreme Court alone, and it's not about all these other issues alone, although I'm going to go through a lot of the issues that I think you should know about where both of these people stand. But this is about the survival of the country first and foremost, and about life or death, because it really is about that. You've seen 3.5 years of Donald Trump. You've seen Donald Trump in the last 7 months. And 200,000 plus people have died on his watch. He has blood on his hands. And he knew about this virus and how deadly it was. He told Bob Woodward. And he told you lies. All he cares about is the stock market. So he can bamboozle you with another con about the market being the economy. It is not the economy. The economy is you and me and others who work. Some of us work 3 jobs. Some of you may be working 3 jobs. Some of you, well, you wouldn't probably have time to listen if you were, but maybe you have been in a situation where you've worked at least 2 jobs, maybe 3. And the reason why he wanted all these things to open is because he wants the economy to rebound. That's what the economy is. It's the workers. It is not the stock market. None of those people in the stock market has to lift a finger except to maybe hit some keys on a keyboard or on their phone to call in some trades. The average person doesn't sell 200,000 shares of stock in a company. And he knows this. He knows this. It's the big money market movers who do this, who move markets, who are the ones who are buying and selling shares. 20,000 shares of this or that. He knows this. And evil is winning at the moment. Let's be honest. Evil is winning at the moment. And in your city and in your state, maybe, you may not have noticed any kind of tension or felt it. But as we are in this election season, as we are in the midst of a pandemic that has killed over 200,000 people here in the United States and has killed almost 1 million people globally, if not 1 million people already globally, the numbers that we know of, because it's always worse than the numbers are, I'm telling you, this is a whole lot worse. And we'll find that out years from now. Not in the moment when we could really be aware of just how bad this is. And I'm sure we are already aware of how bad it is, but how much worse it really is. But you may not have felt this in your town or your city. But I would tell you that there is a lot of tension and anxiety on the streets. I've noticed it here in San Francisco, California. I've noticed people who have told me that they've felt that way in other parts of California and in other states. And maybe you do as well. I'm sure that you've seen people who are not wearing masks. Hopefully you are wearing yours. I hope you do. Too much time is spent on media coverage of people who are not doing the right thing, right? Because that's a ratings grabber for these news agencies and cable news television places. They don't focus on the 75% of people or so, or the 58 or whoever. It depends on the state you're in, right? Which state you're in. They don't focus on the people who are doing the right thing. They focus on the people who are doing the wrong thing, the minority of people who are doing the wrong thing. So you may see someone down your street who doesn't wear a mask. Please do not bother getting into a confrontation with them. Please don't bother with that. I know the tensions are high for so many reasons, whether it's economic, whether it's anything else. You're wondering about your job, you're wondering about this, you're wondering about that. You're wondering about the police, whether they're going to kill you, whether they're going, whether you're, there's so many things. You wonder about the outcome of this election. You're really nervous about it. You're afraid. You're worried what could happen. The Supreme Court situation. And I'm not going to get into the Supreme Court deeply because we have just lost somebody who is a towering figure, was a towering figure in this country. And she really did a whole lot in this country to make life better for women and for people generally. And I think that we need to give her the proper respect, myself included. And when it comes to the Supreme Court, can we just put that aside for a few more days until this legendary figure, this person who, in her own right, stood much taller than her actual size? I'm talking about Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Or as I would like to call her, the triple truth Ruth. I know I'm borrowing from Do the Right Thing, but I mean, can we have some decency at least? And that's another thing. The media going off about the Supreme Court. Can we actually just praise and remember this life well lived and a life that was lived in public service and dedicated to helping people and changing the landscape for women in this country and for people, and was dedicated to equal rights and justice? Can we allow in our national conversation and culture a day or two more to recognize and respect and honor the memory of Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Can we do that? It's like a bunch of jackals. I mean, she's not been buried yet. You do know that, right? It is September 20th as I record this, 2020. And at this moment, as I record these words that you're hearing, the sound coming from this microphone, my voice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has not been put to rest yet. She's not been buried yet. And you've got people out here going off about Supreme Court this and Supreme Court that. It's so undignified. And it really reveals something about the American culture as well, and the media culture, and everything else. I get it. People are afraid and worried about the Supreme Court. But can we actually arrest that and we can talk about that after this justice is buried, after she is buried? Can we absolutely do that? Can we do that? I know the answer to that question.
I love this guy. Even though he writes shit about me, that's okay. Go ahead. I have such respect for you.
I wrote 4 books on George W. Bush's wars. I went through NSC notes, CIA reports. I spent hours with Bush, all of the people.
Oh, you did?
And you know why we went?
Didn't he come out terribly with those books?
Well, see what he did. I mean, the 3rd book was called State of Denial because he got into denial.
Let me ask you.
Sure.
He spent all that time with you.
Yes.
And you made him look like a fool. Okay, in my opinion.
No. My job is to find the best obtainable.
Well, in the end, you'll probably write a lousy book. What can I tell you? I respect you as an author.
So I've got a giveaway for you. The book Rage is all the rage now. #1 bestseller. It is going to be that very shortly, if it is not already. Bob Woodward's book. Of course, you know who it's about. I've been talking about the book and I've been talking about the subject matter. And you've already heard the tapes, parts of them, all of them, some of them. This is the giveaway that you've probably been waiting for those of you who aren't tired of reading these books about the evil that is Donald Trump. And we can do something about that evil, and we can do that right now. There are 44 days left of voting. 44. And there are states around the country right now who are early voting either in person or by mail. And I will update that list every day as well on Twitter at the Popcorn REEL. And by the way, that's where you can go to tweet me to say that you want a copy of Rage. This book, Rage, by Bob Woodward. I am giving away one copy of the book. And you can get that copy by just responding to this giveaway. Going on Twitter at the Popcorn REEL and just tweet me saying that you'd like a copy of the book. It's a one-time only giveaway on this podcast on Sunday, September the 20th, 2020. That's today. And that giveaway is in effect until midnight at Eastern time. Midnight Pacific time tonight. That would be Monday, September the 21st at midnight tonight is when the clock strikes midnight Pacific time. 3 a.m. Eastern on Monday, September 21st, 2020. Any entries after that will not be accepted. So just tweet me at the Popcorn REEL and say that you'd like to have a copy of Rage. I'm only giving away one copy of the book, Rage by Bob Woodward. There'll be more giveaways to come. I've talked about this before. It is really important to defend institutions, and even if you may have an issue with those institutions, it's important that those institutions exist so that we can try to shape them or change them or even dismantle them and rebuild or put up new ones. But we don't let institutions be destroyed by the people running them. We can't have that. We can't have it. And that means we've got to defend them, especially the institution of voting. And it's very important at this time that you defend the institution of voting by participating in it. And not only just participating in it, but by voting for the candidate who is going to be the one that has a chance to win. And there are only two candidates in this presidential election that have a chance to win. There's only two of them. One of them is Joe Biden. The other one is the guy in the White House who's there right now. There's only two choices here, folks. And one of them is not a write-in candidate. One of them is not a third party. And one of them is not staying at home. If you want to participate in an institution, if you want to defend it from attack from tyrannical rulers, because Donald Trump is that, then make sure that you participate and defend the institution. I'm going to go to, again, the book from Timothy Snyder, On Tyranny. This is a really important book. He's got a new book out called, I think, The Maladies or On Our Malady. And he talks about being a coronavirus patient and about healthcare. And very good book as well. But the book that I want to refer you to is On Tyranny. 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder. I'm going to read a few pages as quickly as I can. This is from chapter 2, Defend Institutions. It is institutions that help us to preserve decency. They need our help as well. Do not speak of, quote, our institutions, end quote, unless you make them yours by acting on their behalf. Institutions do not protect themselves. They fall one after the other unless each is defended from the beginning. So choose an institution you care about, a court, a newspaper, a law, a labor union, and take its side. We tend to assume that institutions will automatically maintain themselves against even the most direct attacks. This was the very mistake that some German Jews made about Hitler and the Nazis after they had formed a government. On February 2nd, 1933, for example, a leading newspaper for German Jews published an editorial expressing this mislaid trust. We do not subscribe to the view that Mr. Hitler and his friends, now finally in possession of the power they have so long desired, will implement the proposals circulating in Nazi newspapers. They will not suddenly deprive German Jews of their constitutional rights, nor enclose them in ghettos, nor subject them to the jealous and murderous impulses of the mob. They cannot do this because a number of crucial factors hold powers in check. And they clearly do not want to go down that road. When one acts as a European power, the whole atmosphere tends towards ethical reflection upon one's better self and away from revisiting one's earlier oppositional posture. Such was the view of many reasonable people in 1933, just as it is the view of many reasonable people now. The mistake is to assume that rulers who came to power through institutions cannot change or destroy those very institutions, even when that is exactly what they have announced that they will do. Remember, I told you earlier about Steve Bannon talking about the deconstruction of the administrative state, and I cited the examples that Donald Trump is doing that right now and has done it. Back to the chapter here from Timothy Snyder's book. Revolutionaries sometimes do intend to destroy institutions all at once. This was the approach of the Russian Bolsheviks. Sometimes institutions are deprived of vitality and function, turned into a simulacrum of what they once were, so that they gird the new order rather than resisting it. This is what the Nazis called Gleichschaltung. It took less than a year for the new Nazi order to consolidate. By the end of 1933, Germany had become a one-party state in which all major institutions had been humbled. That November, German authorities led parliamentary elections without opposition and a referendum on an issue where the correct answer was known to confirm the new order. Some German Jews voted as the Nazi leaders wanted them to, in the hope that this gesture of loyalty would bind the new system to them. That was a vain hope. And that's from Tim Snyder's book on tyranny, chapter 2 there, Defend Institutions. Chapter 3 starts off with, is called Beware the One-Party State. And this is what we're dealing with here in America. And this notion that Donald Trump wants loyalty, and then he doesn't give loyalty. He fires people. He gets rid of people. He throws them under the bus. Did to Robert Redfield the other day. Oh, Robert Redfield was confused. He didn't, he didn't know what he was talking about. He was confused. I mean, he's demanding loyalty from you, but he isn't loyal to you. And people in league with him, they stick around him hoping for power. And he's destroying them. These Republican senators that shilled for him and acquitted him of abuse of power at that sham trial that McConnell conducted 7 months ago. Remember, 7.5 months ago, February the 5th, he was acquitted the day after he gave the State of the Union address this year. Remember that? He gave the State of the Union on February 4th, praised China for what they were doing. Oh, they're doing a great job dealing with the coronavirus. The very next day, he was acquitted by 52 out of the 53 Republican senators. And then on February the 6th, he went out there with his newspaper that said Trump acquitted and all this garbage and used and cursed and said all this. Come on, folks. And all of these Republican senators who are running this year, who are running in November, the chances of many of them being reelected is nil. We've got to flip the Senate Democratic anyway. But they're all tanking. He doesn't care about them. He's tanking them. They voted because they're afraid of him, but they voted also for power. Ooh, he's got power. Let's align with him. Because he will care because we are loyal to him. He doesn't care about your ass. He doesn't care about these people. He doesn't care about you. So that's what people do. These are craven people, venal, willing to be bribed, they're venal people, easily bribed, right? So I'm going to now vote for this guy, right, who has disrespected my wife, all this stuff, Ted Cruz. I'm going to vote with him, and then I'm going to name Ted Cruz as my Supreme Court person. I'm not going to get into it, I promised. But the point is that these people will do anything for power. Power. They will do anything for that. And this guy will throw them under the bus. It's a complete death cult from top to bottom. So I ask you again, landslide or deathslide? Pick one. You defend an institution by voting. That's one institution you should defend. Tim Snyder talked about that. I just read that to you in his book on tyranny. And you must defend the institution of voting. It definitely needs to be reformed. But you've got to defend it now by voting for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and by voting for all the Democrats who are running in your state. Pick every Democrat in your state. That's the answer here. You have to send a clear message, not just to Donald Trump, but to the entire Republican Party, who have absolutely revealed who they are, who they've been for the last 50 years, plus. The last 60 years, really, if we're really being honest. I mean, people forget that Nixon committed treason in 1968. And when he ran in 1960, he was running, right? And the thing is that he had already been in the White House for 8 years don't forget, Eisenhower had Nixon as his vice president. The guy had already been in the White House in the 1950s. Richard Nixon was the vice president to Eisenhower. People can't believe that, but that's true. He was the vice president. And then look at the crimes that Richard Nixon did. Watergate, break-in, and the Vietnam stuff. He scuttled the peace talks in Paris. I mean, come on, folks. And then you got Donald Trump's supporters now disrupting early voting in Virginia on Saturday. This is from September 19th. New York Times, Trump supporters disrupt early voting in Virginia. This is nothing new. And by the way, and I'm going to just read this piece of it, very, very small. I'll put a link to this in the podcast. But this is a strategy that has been broken out by the Republicans and these conservative groups and these thugs on Facebook who do this stuff. And maybe financed by the Russians too, who knows? Wouldn't shock me. Quote, in Virginia, the safe zone around the polling location is only 40 feet, but that safe zone is for campaigning and trying to change a person's vote, said Sylvia Albert, director of voting and elections at Common Cause, a voting rights group. Quote, outside of that, in general, there are laws against intimidation. So I would say that even if they, the Trump supporters, have a right to campaign, which they absolutely do, they do not have a right to interfere with someone's right to vote or to intimidate them. To me, This went beyond campaigning and they should have been removed. Unquote. The first 2 days of early voting in Virginia were marked by high turnout and long lines, with voters beginning to line up early in the morning, hours before polls opened. This is really good news, folks. That's the good news. And the reason why people are out there is because they don't want to take a chance with the U.S. Postal Service, which has been an absolute joke. You want to talk about another institution that's been destroyed. That's why I said the other day, support the post office. Buy stamps. But Louis DeJoy doesn't want a post office. He wants to privatize it, as do these Republicans. They've wanted this for years. And the reason why you're seeing these long lines is that people are risking their lives. They're going out there to vote early. They know what's at stake in this election. They know what's at stake. I mean, I saw 4 a.m. People had been on the lines in Virginia, in some places, at 4 a.m. I mean, this is 4 or 5 hours before the polls even open for early voting. People are going to vote, and trust me, you don't think that people are going to see those pictures from Fairfax, Virginia, and Charlottesville, Virginia. Charlottesville, folks. Remember Charlottesville? Did you forget from 3 years ago? I'm sure you didn't. And all these other places, Arlington, everything. That's going to go around the country, and believe me, it's going to be replicated in a lot of places. And so you've got these Trump supporters, some of them black, standing there holding flags and shouting, 4 more years and all this garbage. They want to intimidate. That's what these people do. These are thuggish people that you're dealing with, folks. This is what you're dealing with. Republicans have always wanted to destroy institutions. I've told you, criminals have found a home in the Republican Party. They've been well at home in that party because the party is a party of criminality. Whether it's Nixon or Reagan or Oliver North or Caspar Weinberger or Bill Barr or George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush or Michael Flynn or Paul Manafort or Roger Stone or Donald Trump and many, many others that I have not named, all Republicans who absolutely are criminals. Michael Cohen, who is now trying to reform himself. And isn't doing a bad job, by the way. He's moving in the right direction, is Mr. Cohen. He's got a book out, too, called Disloyal. You've got to read that book. He's got a podcast out there, too. It's called Mea Culpa. But the point is that Republicans are always the ones that want to destroy institutions. They have been for at least the last 60 plus years. You're going to have intimidation. Now you're going to have, this is why you should be voting early, though. Because I think you're going to see more of this, particularly on November 3rd. And it's not going to be everywhere, but you're going to see more of this. People shouting. It's just like what happened 20 years ago when you had the so-called Gucci riot, where you had these people in Florida banging on the doors of the vote counting places, shouting, let us in, or shouting, President Bush, President Bush. President Bush, President Bush. There you go. That's the audio from when it happened in 2000. Bush v. Gore. And you had people who were paid, who were bussed in, who were, operatives. Brett Kavanaugh was one of these people. And there may have been others, but I think Brett Kavanaugh was part of this group. They organized and they went down to, they didn't even live in the county that they went to in Florida. And they were banging on the doors and making a show of it all, trying to intimidate the vote counters. And they're going to do this again. This is a warm-up. All of the stuff that you've seen this year is a warm-up for what's going to happen after the election. Be aware of that, please. I hate to bring you bad news like this, and this is not, look, this podcast that I think you've noticed by now is pretty damn serious because I don't sit here talking about Nickelodeon. There's plenty of places to go for that kind of entertainment and edification. What I talk about here is real stuff. It's happening. I'm sorry to sound like I'm wagging my finger or looking down my nose at you. Because, I mean, this is happening and you know it's happening. You know that what I am saying is true. I am not making this up. There are sources that you see that I allude to. I point them out. I link them. There's no reason for me to sit here and waste time and lie to you. And there's plenty of places to go. If you want lies, if you want to see what the other side thinks, if you want to hear what they think, if you want to hear that, there's plenty of places to go for those kinds of lies.
Hey there, I'm Daniel Dale. I'm a CNN fact-check reporter. I fact-check every single thing President Donald Trump says. For more than 3 years now, this president has been lying about supposed voter fraud and supposed election improprieties.
Because there's a lot of fraudulent voting going on in this country.
He's made such accusations about various states, but California has been his favorite target. Listen to one of the things he said recently.
But in California, the governor sent, I hear, or is sending millions of ballots all over the state. Millions to anybody. To anybody. People that aren't citizens, illegals, anybody that walks in California is going to get a ballot.
This is just not happening. Because of the pandemic, California's governor is sending a ballot to every registered voter in the state, not every resident, regardless of their immigration status. Undocumented immigrants, other non-citizens, they can't register. But California's been a frequent target of President Trump when it comes to lies about voter fraud and elections.
In many places, like California, the same person votes many times. You probably heard about that. They always like to say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Not a conspiracy theory, folks.
Actually, it is a conspiracy theory. This just isn't happening. No evidence whatsoever.
And those illegals get out and vote. They vote many times, not just twice, not just 3 times. They vote, it's like a circle. They come back, they put a new hat on. They come back, they put a new shirt on. And in many cases, they don't even do that. You know what's going on. It's a rigged deal.
Come on, undocumented immigrants switching hats to vote multiple times? There's just no evidence this is happening. Now, the president going after California over and over again has serious consequences. It's one of the things he does that undermines Americans' faith in the democratic process and in fair elections. It's not only California that he's gone after either.
When you look at what's happened in Texas with all of those votes that they recently found were not exactly properly done, that catastrophe that took place in Florida, where the Republican candidates kept getting less and less and less and less. Remember last time we won the primary tremendously? We should have won the election, but they had buses being shipped up from Massachusetts, hundreds and hundreds of buses.
This Texas allegation collapsed soon after local Republicans made it. In Florida, they were just counting ballots. That's why the totals kept changing. And in New Hampshire, they did an exhaustive investigation, found no evidence that hordes of voters were being improperly bussed in from liberal Massachusetts. Now, it's not just individual states. Trump has broadly suggested that there was fraud in the 2016 election that he won. And now he's set his sights on the 2020 election he's currently running in, this time focusing on mail-in voting.
No, you can't do that. You can't do the mail-in ballots because you can have tremendous fraud. And remember what I said. They'll be grabbing them from mailboxes. They'll even be printing them. They'll use the same paper, the same machines, and they'll be printing ballots illegally. And they'll be sending them in by the hundreds of thousands, and nobody's going to know the difference.
There's no evidence of any kind of widespread fraud with mail-in voting. This matters. Millions of Americans are currently considering voting by mail or need to vote by mail. And this is the President of the United States using deliberate dishonesty to undermine their faith and the rest of the country's faith in the democratic process.
That was Daniel Dale from CNN, and I thank him for the job he's doing. And others are doing this at the Washington Post as well. I think it's Glenn Kessler who's doing the fact-checking there, and others. I thank all of these folks who spend hours and hours with all this information, fact-checking everything this guy does, because believe me, when these debates roll around in 9 days, there's going to have to be something that the media have to do about this. They will have to have fact checks on screen. They will have to. And they need to have teams of fact checkers and teams of chyron writers. Because a lie moves around the world halfway, in fact, all the way around the world, before the truth even has a chance to wake up. Forget getting its boots on. I mean, this guy is going to lie. Donald Trump is going to lie to you like never before in the debate. And Joe Biden knows that. Joe Biden's already prepared for that. Remember when President Obama debated Mitt Romney in 2012, debate number 1, and Mitt Romney was telling these lies and we were all profoundly disturbed by it? I certainly was, and I know many people were. And Obama was standing there shocked, and many people thought that Mitt Romney actually won that first debate. And many people said he did, because Obama was caught so flat-footed. You can still find that debate on YouTube. Watch how he absolutely is flat-footed by the lies then. And I think Mitt Romney only told 15 lies in that whole debate. Only. Donald Trump is going to tell 15 lies in a minute and a half. He's going to tell lies. It's going to be furiously intense lying. And I know Joe Biden knows this, but what about this moderator? What about Mike Wallace's son? Mike Wallace's son, Chris, who's moderating this first debate. And what about these? We need fact checkers. We need them. And Daniel Dale and I believe Glenn Kessler, or I forget his name, at the Washington Post, and all these other people who do this. And I'm sorry I don't remember your names. This is a very important thing. And I do this too. I've been fact checking this guy as well from time at the convention especially. We have to do this because he's going to lie. And there are people in this country and in this world who like to be lied to. It's like some people in a relationship who say to you, don't tell me, you didn't have to tell me that you were cheating. Well, I don't know if that's the example they would use, but I've heard this in movies and in real life. You don't have to tell me that. I would just as soon as well have not known. Or why didn't you lie to me? Why didn't you say? You've heard that, maybe not you, but someone you know has experienced that from their spouse, their partner, from their girlfriend, boyfriend. You know, they're the person that they love, their partner. Surely that's happened to somebody out there. Maybe you, maybe not. But we need to have this fact-checking process. And I think this country's moving in a direction that is really life-affirming. I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to play this clip right now.
Do not let them take away your power. Do not let them take away your democracy. Make a plan right now for how you are going to get involved and vote. Do it as early as you can and tell your family and friends how they can vote too.
Thank you, Mr. President, for reminding us that we must vote. Don't let them take this away. Don't. You can't be 2016 again. You can't. Fool me once, as you know who said. If you fool them, I should just play the audio, shouldn't I?
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Yeah, that's it, right? Don't let this happen twice. Don't let this happen twice. And quite frankly, it's shame on us the first time because you knew what Donald Trump was. Those people out there who are listening to this who actually did vote for him or who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because you might have voted third party, you might have written someone's name in. I know people who voted third party. You can't do that now in 2020. Not with the country destroyed like this. You aid and abet that. And you vote for Donald Trump if you vote third party, if you vote libertarian, if you write in someone's name. If you stay home, you're voting Donald Trump. And that's the truth. And that's the fact. This is an ad from Joe Biden from Saturday that's on his Twitter page. Oh my goodness. This is from a rally that Trump did somewhere on Saturday. And this is one of the funniest ads I've seen from Joe Biden. And it's just 10 seconds long. Listen to this.
If I lose to him, I don't know what I'm going to do. I will never speak to you again. You'll never see me again.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
If you think that Donald Trump is somehow going to disappear after he loses, if he loses, especially if he loses big to Joe Biden, you've got another thing coming. I have told you before about the white terrorist threat in the United States and how the FBI has put it at the number one most dangerous threat in this country in terms of violence and terrorism, white racists, or as they are called in other circles, white quote-unquote supremacists. Here is Don Lemon from last Thursday night talking about the testimony of FBI Director Christopher Wray, who testified last week before the House Homeland Security Committee, I believe is the name of that committee, and he also testified last year, April of 2019. You will hear both portions of testimony from those particular years, last year and this, in this report from Don Lemon.
So the FBI Director Christopher Wray telling lawmakers that white supremacists are the largest group of racially motivated domestic terrorists. He says it accounts for the bulk of the Bureau's work on domestic threats.
Within the domestic terrorism bucket, category as a whole, racially motivated violent extremism is, I think, the biggest bucket within that larger group. And within the racially motivated violent extremist bucket, people subscribing to some kind of white supremacist type ideology is certainly the biggest chunk of that.
Did you hear? All you folks, clean out your ears, the ones who criticize us for saying that, call me a race baiter for saying that. It's the truth, it's a fact. It's not new either. Many times on this show, we have pointed out that officials see white supremacy as a major terror threat in this country. That's the head of the FBI saying it. It's just that people don't want to hear it. Even though last year, Director Wray said the threat was persistent and pervasive.
The danger, I think, of white supremacist violent extremism or any other kind of violent extremism is, of course, significant. We assess that it's a persistent, pervasive threat.
CNN reported just last week on a Department of Homeland Security assessment that finds white supremacists will remain the most persistent and lethal threat in the United States through 2021. That according to draft documents. The president doesn't recognize the threat. He keeps warning of a liberal mob coming to destroy our cities. Meanwhile, the umbrella man, seen smashing windows of a business in Minneapolis following the killing of George Floyd, turns out he is associated with a prison gang, a gang the Anti-Defamation League identifies as white supremacist. People believe that he helped initiate riots and destruction. So while the president employs race-baiting tactics, you heard him today, while he incites panic over Antifa invading suburbs, not happening, while the president downplays the threat of white supremacy, remember, very fine people on both sides. Listen to what officials are saying. They are saying the threat is real from white supremacists, a threat that will remain real until there is a president who takes action. And the current president has shown no interest in doing just that.
So in April of this year, I wrote a story. It could have been in March, actually. I wrote a story for the Politicrat blog, which I will be adding more to over the next few days. And I've neglected it just a little bit the last few months, and I apologize to my own blog. How do you do that? How do you go about apologizing to your own blog? See, we're all on edge, right? Or I'm going a little bit nuts. Oh dear. If you ever hear that song again, David Bowie, "I'm Deranged." That song from David Bowie is not it is well known actually among people who love David Bowie. Maybe you're someone who does. That song actually played in the really weird, wonderful, and crazy film by David Lynch called Lost Highway. Oh my goodness, what a movie that is. Yikes. I mean, David Lynch in some ways is a really brilliant filmmaker, but he really knows how to make these garish films that kind of probe something really deep and subterranean. I know this sounds pretentious to some people, but but honestly, it probes something deep about the subterranean culture in the United States. This very deeply primal, guttural, animalistic, toxic, male, violent culture. I mean, it does. And this white male violent culture, let me be even more specific, although there are black men and, all other kinds of men too who participate in this violent male culture. They have toxic masculinity as well, some of those individuals too, of all of these groups. So this is, but in the case of Lost Highway, wow, that movie will either repel you or blow your mind or both. I mean, David Lynch movies typically do those things anyway, but the filmmaking quality is really good. He knows how to make a great film, even though that film is profoundly disturbing and disgusting and evil, like Blue Velvet, which is one of the most beautifully filmed films about decadence and evil and violence. That it's just horrible, actually. I mean, it's rough stuff. I mean, it's really rough stuff. It's not easy viewing. I mean, anyway, I could go into the film stuff today, but I'm not going to go too much further there. But I think, where was I? Look, wherever I was, I'm going to go to this point now. The last 3 years in this country, if you look at the trend is toward progressivism. The trend is towards having more Democrats, and also Democrats that move the needle more to the left. And I know that Jim, I'm looking at a book in front of me called The New Jim Crow, which I urge you to read. Is by Michelle Alexander. So that's why I said Jim. I meant Joe. Joe Biden is not someone who is going to necessarily move the needle to the left progressively. But that's our job as voters. We have to push him. Once he gets in, if he gets in, because it's not happened yet. But if he were to get in, and I think he will get in, we need to push him to the left. Not stay home on election night and throw our toys in the pram and get angry. Throw our toys out of the pram, rather, and get angry because Bernie Sanders isn't there. Bernie Sanders is backing Joe, even as he has disagreements with him. I mean, and Bernie Sanders is not the head of the movement. I know some people think he is. I'm a progressive. I mean, Bernie Sanders ran 2 campaigns, and he showed up well in both and could have shown up even better had he not made some key mistakes. I'm a big Bernie fan. I've talked about the mistakes that Bernie has made. I've written about them on the blog, the Politicrat blog that I have, which I have linked in my liner notes. And that's where I was. I wrote this article. Now I get back to where I was. I wrote an article back in March of this year in that blog, Politicrat blog. You'll find it. It's linked in my podcast, liner notes. And I said that this is like the 1932 election. I think this election outcome is going to be like 1932. I think it's going to be a landslide. Now, it may not be, but I think Biden is going to win this thing in a landslide. If it's true, if we see a replication of what we've seen in early voting in Virginia, if we see that in a lot of other states, it's over. It is a wrap. Joe Biden will be waltzing into the White House with Kamala Harris. But we've got to vote early, in droves. Get your family, your friends out there and tell them vote early. Make it the first day of early voting, as I've said many times on this podcast. And people in Fairfax, listen to me. People in Fairfax, Virginia, listened. Some of them have listened to this podcast. I don't want to be that egotistical and think it's because I did it. But I will tell you, I was very happy to see it. And it's going to keep happening. And there's lots of reasons why people voted early and voted on the first day of early voting. Lots of reasons. I've alluded to those reasons. But I wrote this in the blog that because of everything that's going on, I mean, we had a Republican in the White House back in 1932. His name's Herbert Hoover. He didn't give a damn about the Republican Great Depression that was going on around him. He did nothing. He was tone deaf. This guy is doing nothing in 2020. He is tone deaf. There is another Great Depression going on, another Republican Great Depression. The economy stinks. The economy is not going to be back for at least another year. I mean, all these things, all of the stuff that's going on, unemployment, we've still got millions and millions of jobs lost, over 30 million at one point, 40 million or whatever it was. Now it's down to what? There's about 20 million jobs lost or whatever it is now. Come on. This is where we are. This is a Great Depression. It's another Republican Great Depression. But I think the outcome of this election is going to be exactly what it was in 1932. A landslide for FDR. FDR rode in on a landslide that year. And I think Joe Biden's going to do the same. But we've got to make that happen. We have to make it happen. This country is moving in a progressive direction. And by the way, it would be progress to have Joe Biden in there, vis-a-vis the guy that's in there now. Even though Joe Biden, we know about his horrible legislative record. I have itemized a lot of that record on a number of occasions on this podcast. You can go back to June, to July of this year, to April of this year, to March of this year, and you will find in each of those months at least one episode where I have strenuously criticized Joe Biden and looked at his record and the stuff around the attack on Tara Reid. You know, I think he raped her. I'm sorry. I think that. I believe her. And as uncomfortable as it is for me to be voting for someone who I think did that to her, there is also a whole country at stake here. And the other guy is no better in that department when it comes to an attack on a woman or raping a woman, violence against women. That guy is no better. He's much worse. And it is a measure of something to have me even sitting here talking to you about two men who I think have raped women. One has raped more women than the other. I mean, how evil is that, right? I'm even sitting here saying those words to you like that. And there is a society out here that maybe know more. And I'm not leaving aside these attacks on women. I'm not. I am also saying there is a 300 million other people out here, 330 million other people who are going to be profoundly affected if this guy stays in the White House for 4 more years. And our job is not to sit home and throw our toys out of our pram because our guy or gal did not make it in. That nonsense last time got us who we got now in the White House. How did that work out for you? When you voted third party, how did that work out? When you wrote in a name, how did that work out? When I told you yesterday or the day before on this podcast that Jill Stein was sitting around a table with Vladimir Putin in October of 2015, was I lying to you? Did you check on the internets? Did you run that search that I asked you to run? Heck, I've got the picture. I'm looking at the picture right now of her sitting at the table. Vladimir Putin sitting like 3 or 4 people away from her. Michael Flynn is at that table. Michael Flynn twice pled guilty. Okay? He did that. So if you want to vote third party, you want to vote green, and the guy who's running has now been thrown off the rolls and thrown off the ballot, not been allowed on the ballot in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, And he's admitted that he's getting help from Republican groups and conservative groups. You take the help wherever you can get it. Really? You take the help from wherever you can get it, and you're the Green Party? Now, there's a Green Party in America, and that party's very different from the one in Europe. The one in Europe really cares about people and actually does good things. The one here is a front for Putin and a front for Republicans. And it's Republican efforts that got this Green Party on the ballot this year because they want to try to take votes away from Joe Biden. It's documented. I'm not making this up. You go search it. You want to vote third party, do you? You want to vote third party, and you've got what's going on, 200,000 people dead. That smells of privilege. And we've got to have a landslide Joe Biden victory here. We've seen the last 3 years, the voters have moved toward the left. Missouri voters, for goodness sakes, voted for a Medicaid expansion last month, an amendment that expanded Medicaid. Come on, folks. We have more women in Congress. We need many more, by the way. We need many more in the Senate, but they're coming. We've seen what happened in 2018. We've seen Doug Jones get in Alabama. Support him. Make sure you support and donate to him. Donate to Jamie Harrison in the Senate for South Carolina against that lying scumbag over there, Lindsey Graham. Donate to all the Democrats who are running against these Republicans in the Senate and in the House and in your locals. In your locals, make sure it's all Democrats. We've seen this trend move. We saw Ed Markey, the progressive, knock off a Kennedy, for God's sake. Kennedys had never lost an election in Massachusetts. They had never lost an election in Massachusetts. And the progressive Ed Markey defeated Joe Kennedy III just earlier this month or late last month. Come on, folks. Come on. We can do this. And to those of you who are voting third party, I'm sorry, this is nonsense. It's a small group of people, okay? I mean, I'm probably sounding like this, so this is a small group of people, some fellow progressives, my fellow progressives, people, I'm a progressive, and there are people who are progressives who are going to vote for Joe Biden, and then there's this small group of people who are going to sit home. Oh, I'm not going to vote for anybody. That smells of privilege. Because you know that no matter what happens, your life is going to be relatively untouched. We have to stop being so damn selfish. I don't care how high-minded and earnest your motivations are. But we cannot afford this now when a country is dying and people are dying. We cannot afford this, staying at home. Because you know what staying at home brought you 4 years ago. It brought you the guy in the White House right now, Donald Trump. And how's that been working out for your staying at home, third-party voting ass? Thank you for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.